I never imagined that I would be writing this, the true story of my life. The life hidden beneath the polite smiles, the lowered eyes, and the quiet obedience that defined me. To the world, I am the shy, meek girl who rose from obscurity to become the lady of Mansfield Park. They see the girl who stood firm against the advances of Henry Crawford, the girl who quietly won the heart of Edmund Bertram. But that's not the whole story. What they don't see is the darkness that lay beneath the surface, the loneliness, the doubt, the struggle to hold on to who I was in a world that constantly tried to define me. I was never meant to be the central figure of any story. From the moment I was sent to Mansfield Park at the age of 10, I was the outsider, the poor relation taken in out of charity. I knew my place. I was to be grateful, submissive, never to draw attention to myself. I was there to be molded, shaped into something useful, something that could fit into the rigid social structure of the Bertram family. But deep down, I always knew that I didn't belong, that I was different from them, that no amount of molding could make me one of them. I spent most of my childhood in silence, watching, observing, learning how to navigate the labyrinth of rules and expectations that surrounded me. I learned to make myself small, to slip into the background, to be invisible. But invisibility comes with a cost. The more I tried to fit in, the more I lost myself. I became a shadow, a faint echo of a girl who once had dreams, who once believed that she could be something more. Mansfield Park was a gilded cage, beautiful and stifling, and I was its prisoner. The Bertrams were kind enough, in their way, but their kindness was conditional. I had to earn it, had to prove that I was worthy of the space I occupied, the food I ate, the air I breathed. Aunt Norris made sure I never forgot that. Her sharp words and constant criticism were like a whip, lashing out at any sign of rebellion, any hint of independence. She kept me in line, making sure I knew my place. There was one person who kept me sane during those years. Edmund was the only one who truly saw me, who treated me with kindness. He was my anchor, my guiding star in a world that seemed intent on crushing me. But even with Edmund, I was never completely free. I cared deeply for him, but I could never tell him. How could I? He was destined for a life of respectability, while I was just the poor relation. I knew my place, and I kept my feelings locked away, buried deep where they couldn't hurt me. When the Crawfords arrived at Mansfield, everything changed. Henry and Mary Crawford were like a whirlwind, sweeping through the house, disrupting the carefully maintained order. Mary, with her beauty and wit, captivated everyone, especially Edmund. I watched as he fell under her spell, as he became infatuated with her. It was like a knife to the heart, but I kept silent, as I always did, hiding my pain behind a mask of indifference. Henry, on the other hand, was a different kind of torment. He pursued me relentlessly, showering me with attention, trying to win me over with his charm. But I saw through him. I saw the vanity, the selfishness, the lack of genuine feeling. I knew he didn't love me. He just wanted to conquer me, to prove that he could make even the quiet, unremarkable Fanny Price fall for him. I resisted, but it wasn't easy. There were moments when I was tempted, moments when I wondered if it would be easier to give in, to let myself be swept away by his charm. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't betray myself, couldn't betray Edmund, even though he didn't know how I felt about him. So I stood firm, refusing Henry's advances, even when it meant facing the anger and disappointment of the Bertrams. They couldn't understand why I would turn down such a brilliant match. To them, Henry Crawford was a catch, a chance for me to rise above my station, to secure my future. But I didn't want a future built on lies and compromise. I wanted something real, something true. In the end, my refusal of Henry led to my exile. Sir Thomas, furious at my ingratitude, sent me back to Portsmouth, to the family I had long since become a stranger to. The return was a shock. The noise, the chaos, the poverty, it was all too much. But there was also a strange sense of freedom in being away from the place that had confined me for so long. For the first time in years, I could breathe. But even in Portsmouth, I couldn't escape the shadow of Mansfield. Letters arrived regularly, reminding me of what I had left behind, of the life I had rejected. The reminders existed as if to tempt me, drawing me back into the fold while simultaneously mocking me for not belonging. Letters from Edmund were among the bitter reminders and temptations. He wrote to me often, his letters filled with news of his courtship with Mary Crawford. It was agony to read them, to see how blind he was to her true nature, how much he had convinced himself that he loved her. I wanted to shake him, to make him see the truth, but I couldn't. I could only watch from a distance as he made his way down a path that I knew would lead to heartache. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it all fell apart. The Crawfords revealed their true colors, and the carefully constructed facade of Mansfield Park crumbled. Henry's affair with Maria, the scandal, the disgrace, it was like a shattering the illusion of respectability that the Bertrams had so carefully maintained. In the aftermath, I was summoned back to Mansfield, not as the poor relation, but as the savior, the one who had seen through the lies and stood firm. But even as I returned to Mansfield, triumphant in the eyes of those who had once looked down on me, I couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness that had settled deep inside me. I had won, in a way, but at what cost? The shadows of Mansfield still clung to me, still whispered in my ear, reminding me of all the things I had lost, all the things I had never had the courage to fight for. Edmund finally saw the truth about Mary Crawford, saw her for who she really was. He turned to me, and I was there, as I'd always been, waiting, hoping, praying that he would finally see me, truly see me. And he did see me, or at least he thought he did. He proposed, and I accepted, but even in that moment of supposed happiness, I felt a pang of doubt. Was this what I had wanted all along? Was this what I had been fighting for? Life with Edmund was everything I had imagined it would be, and yet it wasn't. There was love, of course, and kindness, and a deep, abiding respect. But there was also a distance, a lingering sense of something unspoken, something unresolved. I had spent so long hiding my true feelings, so long suppressing my desires, that I didn't know how to be truly honest, even with the man I loved. I threw myself into the role of wife, determined to be the perfect partner. But all the while, there was a part of me that felt hollow, a part that longed for something more. I had always been content to live in the shadows, to be the quiet, unassuming presence in the background. But now, with the weight of responsibility on my shoulders, I found that I wanted more, needed more. The years passed, and Mansfield Park changed. The dynamics within its walls shifted, yet it remained a symbol of the rigidity that had governed my life for so long. We settled into a quiet routine, one that offered stability, but lacked the passion I had secretly yearned for. My life became a series of predictable events. While this suited me in many ways, it also left me with an aching sense of unfulfilled potential. The girl who had once dreamed of more, who had once believed in true happiness, was fading. There were moments when I would catch myself in the mirror, and the reflection seemed like a stranger. The meek girl who had once been content to live in the shadows was now a woman. But what had she become? A dutiful wife, a compassionate neighbor, a figure of respect. These were all roles I played well, yet they didn't fully capture the depths of my inner life. I had spent so long suppressing my true self that I didn't know how to be truly honest. The birth of our first child brought a new dimension to my existence, one that was both joyful and daunting. Motherhood was a role I had never imagined, and I approached it with the same careful deliberation that had characterized my every action. I was determined to be the best mother I could be, to offer my child the love and security that had been absent in my own early years. Yet, as I held my baby in my arms, I couldn't help but wonder if I was capable of giving the kind of love that would truly nurture and inspire. In the quiet hours of the night, I would sometimes imagine what my life might have been like if I had made different choices. What if I had accepted Henry Crawford's proposal? What if I had allowed myself to be swept away by charm and excitement? Would I have found happiness in a life of wealth and social prestige, or would I have become even more lost? These were questions without answers, but they lingered, a reminder of the roads not taken. As the years went on, the sense of disquiet only grew. I was surrounded by the trappings of a respectable life, a devoted husband, a comfortable home, beautiful children, but something was missing. The life I lived was a far cry from the one I had once imagined for myself, and the dissonance between my reality and my dreams gnawed at me. I had everything society told me I should want, yet there was a void within me that nothing seemed to fill. I began to notice the cracks in the facade of my life, the small resentments, the unspoken frustrations, the moments of silence that stretched too long. My husband was kind, but he didn't truly understand me. How could he? I had never allowed him to see the parts of me that were most vulnerable, most real. I had hidden them away, out of fear that they would be too much, too unacceptable. In my heart, I longed for a connection that went deeper than the surface, for a love that didn't just see the woman I had become, but the girl I had once been, the girl who had dreams and desires, who had been willing to fight for her own happiness. But that girl was a distant memory, buried beneath layers of duty and obligation. There were days when I would escape into the garden, finding solace among the flowers and the trees. In those quiet moments, I felt a brief respite from the weight of my life. The garden became my sanctuary, a place where I could let my guard down and simply be. It was here, in the solitude of nature, that I began to confront the truth I had been avoiding for so long. I was not happy, I was not content, and no amount of pretending would change that. The realization was both liberating and terrifying. I had spent so long trying to fit into a mold that wasn't meant for me, that I had forgotten who I truly was. And now, standing at the crossroads of my life, I had to make a choice. Would I continue down the path of quiet resignation, or would I dare to seek out the life I had always wanted? It wasn't an easy decision. The prospect of upheaving my life, of risking everything I had built, was daunting. But the alternative, continuing to live a life that felt like a lie, was even more unbearable. So, I made a choice to stop hiding, to stop pretending, to stop being the woman everyone expected me to be. I decided to step out of the shadows and into the light, to reclaim the parts of myself I had lost along the way. It was not an instant transformation, nor was it without pain. There were tears and arguments and moments of deep doubt. But there was also a growing sense of freedom, of finally being able to breathe. I began to speak my truth, and Edmund listened. I expressed my desires and my frustrations, and Edmund met them with his own. I sought out the connection I had longed for, even if it meant challenging the status quo. And Edmund stayed and stood beside me as we grew together. I let myself feel deeply, to love and to be loved in return, not as the quiet, unremarkable woman I had once been, but as the strong, complex, and passionate person I had always been beneath the surface. In time, the life I lived began to reflect the person I truly was. It was not perfect, and it was not always easy, but it was real, and it was mine. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly alive. Looking back, I realized that my story is not just one of quiet endurance, but of resilience, of courage, and of a relentless pursuit of authenticity. I am no longer the shadow of Mansfield. I am whole, I am free, and I am finally, unapologetically, me.